What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves life stuff. We are still in thinking about love mode. Still set off by thinking about what happened with that last major sociopath. But we are moving in some different directions. Probably going to be a messy video. Lots of stuff to talk about, but let's start with some of the easier things. I'm beginning to accept what men and women are to one another. And you never know what's going to make something click or click better. I was watching a video, I think the channel is called The Psych History Channel or something like that. It's a conspiracy channel, but of the long form conspiracy and sometimes crime or crime and conspiracy channels, I don't know why this one holds my attention better than the other ones do. If I remember to, I'll put a link to one of the videos in the description so you can have a look. Anyway, he was going through some Manson interviews, and one of the things Manson said, and it felt like a non sequitur. Well, no, it wasn't a non sequitur because it was connected to what he was saying, but when I'm listening to videos, it's more like a fog of narrative in my head. I'm not really paying attention. But occasionally something will hit you like a diamond bullet, and you never want to forget it. Manson said, "The woman reflects the man." And I've been trying to come to terms with this for a long time because, as misogynistic as I can seem, and as misogynistic as I am, I struggle with viewing women as something actually different, which is probably where a lot of the confoundment and irritation comes from. Men and women aren't the same thing coming from different places. Men and women are totally different things. And you'll notice in lasting relationships, or at least positive ones, including ones in which it seems like the woman is the one in charge, the woman's nature becomes largely defined by the man she's with. And guiding the relationship, guiding the partnership, is the man's responsibility. With her input, or according to her needs, also, but the man is the one at the helm. And I've always loved Patrice's philosophy of whatever is going wrong, it's your fault, which you can apply to anything, not just relationships. And when you look at things that way, you start to become more competent. And what a woman does, or what a woman brings to the table, is she expands the man's capabilities. As a dude, when you are in man mode, you are problem solving. And you're never more able to solve problems than when you are in a good relationship. Because you have a partner, but it doesn't feel like a partnership. It feels like a symbiosis. Her hands are your hands, her insights are your insights, and if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, your accomplishments benefit the both of you. And if we want to think about a woman's role as, or in more of an individualistic way, a good woman keeps you in peak performance. Patrice referred to women as corner men in boxing, and that makes a lot of sense. And on any average day, in a good relationship, when you are synchronized, there are two separate bodies walking around, formed in the man's image with considerations of form and practice given to the woman's needs. You're like a two-person hive mind starting from a soul imprint of the man, grown under the influence of the woman's concerns. And part of the dude's job is determining which of those needs or which of those concerns need to be addressed, need to be cared about. So you do start to resemble one another, but coming from different places for different reasons, and in the end, leaning more in the man's direction. And I've been thinking about my problem with relationships. Aside from the fact you're always where you're supposed to be, or at least I feel like I am where I'm supposed to be, which irritates me to no end, but it's gotten better. I don't have the patience. And I think a lot about why relationships were so much easier when I was younger. And I think it's because I was at a lower level as a person. Meaning, there wasn't a lot of guiding to do because there wasn't much guiding I could do. I hadn't elevated into anyone resembling a dude or a man who should be guiding. Meaning, when I was younger, there was a lot less friction and cause to be impatient because there was nothing to have friction about and there was nothing to be impatient about. These days, I'm not a king and I might not even be a noble, but I am close to breaking into the noble class. I'm pretty close to being a high quality man. To use Patrice's 1 to 30 scale, except instead of going with women and attractiveness, we're going with men and spiritual elevation. I feel like I'm at an 18 or a 19. And I would prefer to say 16 or 17 to take some of that pressure off my shoulders. But if we're being realistic, I'm pretty close to being, or to breaking in to that class of high quality dude. 20, 21, 22. And once you're there, you're a low quality, high quality man, but you've broken that barrier. I feel like I'm getting close to breaking that barrier. So when I talk to women these days, it's not as simple as it was when I was younger. The dating market is all kinds of fucked up too. And the goal isn't just to be with somebody. We tried that, and maybe we'll talk about that in this video, because that's another thing I've been thinking about. You are looking for a woman who aligns with where you are and where you're going. No bums. And there are a lot of bum-ass women. But that got me thinking too. Patrice would say, every woman is a bum, every woman is goofy, and it's your job to bring them up to your level. If you're having trouble finding women who are what you're looking for, that's your problem. You need to be a builder. You need to be a guide. But there are 3 shortcomings on my part in that field. First, I'm impatient. That comes from elitism. I feel like I'm above having to do what a man is supposed to do, which is doing me no favors. It's making me miserable. I could list off a bunch of excuses, which I have, but how's that going for you? Another problem is incompetence. I never really figured out how to deal with women's bullshit on a more advanced level. Another Patrice example, he talked about karate class, Hayya, with the white belts and the black belts, or the military, his military example, generals and privates. A general can't lead a private. I'm not a general or a black belt. I'm maybe a green belt. I don't know what rank a green belt is. It's probably somewhere in the middle of that dumb system. I have completely neglected my classes. I haven't taught classes since I was a white belt, or whatever's just one step above white belt, which is ridiculous because at that level you shouldn't even be teaching classes, but and that's a weird thing. I had weird good fortune when I was younger, and I did teach some classes, but I haven't been teaching classes. Meaning, we're going to assume a blue belt is underneath a green belt. I don't know how to teach a blue belt, even though I should know how to, and that's my fault. And part of that comes from the fact I still respect women. Big mistake. And then the third shortcoming is the narcissistic frailty, I think is the best way to describe it. Going back to those good fortunes when I was younger, I was conditioned to believe when a woman is really into you, she sticks her ass in your face. And I think there's some truth to that, because that's exactly how Vaughn got Patrice when they were courting one another in this weird, uncomfortable, spiteful way because they hated each other, but they loved each other. Weird. Patrice is... This is another thing I thought about. I don't have any real heroes. I have a lot of people I like. I have a lot of people I look up to. I have touchstone people, like Hemingway is one for me. But Hemingway isn't a hero. Hemingway isn't the model of what I'd like to be. Patrice is the only one. Saint O'Neill is my only real hero. Anyway, that's the way all the most important relationships in my life started. The ones I still think about. The ones that will affect me probably until I die. Ass in face, metaphorically, just about from the jump. Meaning, over time, that became what I was conditioned to look for. And I think that's still important because, again, despite the weird, lengthy beginning of Patrice and Vaughn's courting before they got official, that was what made their relationship official. Mark Maron had a similar experience. Bob Kelly's wife, still married, probably going on 20 years now. She blew him on a rock on their first date. So I still take that as an important signal, because that's not really a signal. That's, what are you, retarded? Are you retarded if you don't jump on it immediately? It's like that, remember that old meme, that delectable old meme with the lifeguard and the dude in the bathtub? This isn't the beach, it's a bathtub. My problem is that's all I really look for. And I'll let myself get baited occasionally. We've talked about this in videos before. The last few years, it's been this weird... It happens the same way every time. Woman shows up, woman shows interest, and then gets you in this holding pattern. If you move forward, she pulls away. If you drift away, she tries to yank you back in. And that's something I've let go on because it's new. It's years old now, but it's still new to me. I don't know what to do with it or to do about it other than to blow it all up once I get tired. And that still feels like what you should do because this is going nowhere. But once again, how's that working out for you? I don't think the answer is to be tolerant of sitting around doing nothing, but I also need more patience for nonsense. The nonsense they do and the nonsense you need to experiment with and the nonsense reactions they're going to have to your experimenting. I need more patience in all that. I think I'm better than what I have to do, and that's a problem. And this is one of the messy videos. Let's segue into something that's connected, but not directly, and then we'll try to get into some other stuff. I've noticed one of the things I do is collect experiences with women so I can analyze them. So I have a lot to analyze. And I reopened the vampire sociopath file for the first time in a while. And I don't think about that one much because it felt like a mistake and a mess and somehow evidence I'm retarded. Because as women go, she sucked. She was in her early 20s in a welfare country, on welfare, raised with a welfare mindset. So although she was in her early 20s, she felt more like a child, as if she were suffering from welfare-induced arrested development. And her idea of romance was, and people joke about, maybe they don't joke about it, but the way the government in welfare states replaces the man in relationships. That's, in the United States, they talk about that more in relation to black women and their kids. No father present, so the government becomes dad. Fucks everything up. That's not a joke. Her idea of romance was to be courted by the avatar of welfare. A dude who exists to give her things, to entertain her, to accommodate any number of her retarded problems that aren't really problems. And she had the nerve to tell me what she wanted was the complete opposite of what she actually wanted, and then resent me when I didn't do the thing she didn't tell me she wanted. And she probably didn't tell me about it initially because on some woman level she knew that was repulsive, that would repulse me, and then act like I'm a piece of shit when I'm trying to be dirty with her, because the only great relationships in my life were based largely and initially on sexual chemistry first and mutually. And then after we somehow managed to part on decent terms, which is insane. I thought that was a triumph that we had parted on good terms. She comes back later and then tries to do the exact same thing again as if nothing we had just been through had ever happened, which infuriated me. But the reason we bring her up in this love examination video is we exchanged I love yous, and it was odd. It made me very uncomfortable, at least once I realized I had been duped, because I did love her. I will contend that. But it was not any sort of love that I am used to or comfortable with, and it felt like defiling the sort of love I like, and it also felt like chains, this love. I felt responsible for her the way a father, a single father, might feel for his recently deceased wife's child with another man. It felt like a burden that I would take seriously, but would rather not. Which is why the fact we quickly, relatively quickly, and mutually broke things off on a positive note, that felt miraculous. I was free of a burden that I was going to carry out of a love obligation, but no passion in the carrying it. Because that wouldn't have been a man and woman relationship. That would have been an obligation and a burden relationship. But it was love, and that's what makes me uncomfortable. And that probably contributes to why I'm less patient with nonsense these days. I do not ever want to end up in a situation like that ever again. A life carrying a burden like that wouldn't be a life well lived, on the one hand, and on the other hand, becoming the sort of person who could violate even a low form of love like that to free yourself, that's probably what you have to do. If that were the route we had gone, that's probably what would have happened, and I don't know what that would have done to me. It would have needed to have happened, but I like the fact. We mentioned in the last video, I think part of my life or my role in this existence requires I be naive, I be easy to mislead, and tying that in with this, part of that I think requires I feel honor bound by love, even a low form of it. And that's not something. That is a dusty, cobwebby corner of the control room of my brain or my heart that I don't think about very often or don't need to visit very often. Some of the few things that I really don't want to violate, even when I know it's necessary. Love is a real thing to me, still. And that is a problem, but as long as I don't do anything stupid again, it's a problem I can work around happily. And I don't hate Vampire, but she bugs the shit out of me. I described it perfectly. She, to me, felt like a moody teenage stepdaughter. But she's in her 20s. But now we get into the more positive forms of love and my experiences with them. I don't know about you, but for me, there are a small number of people I have nothing to do with anymore. Don't speak with them, don't know where they are, don't know if they're alive. But when I'm in a situation that calls for them, whatever they represent to me in my head these days, I will go to them mentally. Return to their imprint. And this is where something I hope is productive happened. I was in a state the other day, and I'm pretty sure it was nervous system shock from the benching because my boobs are on fire, still bad, and I've been out of it all day today. I feel like I've been sedated all day today. But the reason the last main sociopath wounded me as much as she did was because she sold me on the dream of a better life, of a better world, of better people, of a happier way to be. And it felt so good. I can't describe to you how good it felt and how comforting it felt. But it was all false, and I should have known. And I'm not even talking about a life with her. I mean, life. She sold me on this paradise matrix. And the fact I fell for it hurts. The fact it isn't real hurts. The fact I still crave it hurts. The fact I'll never really know what her deal was hurts. And it's funny, I spent more time with that not last sociopath, last INFJ, but those two words are interchangeable. Should be. That one devastated me. But I was able to deal with it because I knew afterward why she did what she did. And she did something very similar. Sold me on something. Sold me on a future. A, a different paradise matrix. But she did that to me and it was just to get back at an ENFJ dude who had used her to get to one of her friends. That was all of that was. And as much as devastating as that was, I was able to put the grief behind me. However, with this sociopath, this INFJ, I don't think I'll ever really be able to put that grief totally behind me because it's a mixture of things. It should be clear to me what she was doing, but it's not. And she was high enough level that she could pull that off. I believe she was advanced enough to wound people psychically and permanently. But I don't know if she did. I don't know if this was accidental. I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And it's weird. She produced this bodily sensation of feeling like someone has a wrench on your neck. And I haven't felt that in a long time. I'm feeling it right now, and it's weird because we've thought about her, we've talked about her in videos occasionally, but that sensation hasn't come back until right now. Anyway, the damage comes from the fact that experience set a bar so high, impossibly high. But I think it was hurting as much as it did, as much as it still can, because I was under the impression it was the bar. And sometimes it does feel like it's the bar. But that's not always the case. And that's what I learned yesterday. Because I had control of myself yesterday, but my body was... I was in... I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if there are levels of shock, but I feel like I was in a... It wasn't just nervous system shock. This was a mild level of actual shock. My body was doing a lot of weird things. But which spirit did I visit when I needed comfort. In a moment of mild crisis, instinctively, I did not go to a paradise matrix. I went back to an imprint that was 100% real. The only woman I absolutely wanted to marry. And there was no other way that relationship could have ended because the circumstances were weird. She didn't want kids, and I think I wouldn't even right now. And she at the time she was almost 10 years older than me. Even right now, I still don't think I would be able to convince her if she and I, if old her and current me were in that situation. I don't think current me would have the skills to get her into childbearing mode. But me 5 years from now probably could. And that's the tragedy of it. It was a lot of. It was just. It was the best thing ever. And it sucks that it couldn't have gone differently. I think she started out trying to prey on me because I knew she was into feeling like she was superior or she had power. She was also into age gaps on one level, and then way later in hindsight, oh my god, she was really into age gaps. How did I not pick up on that? But I loved her so much that was something we could have worked through. And it's so much lines up. I don't. I know the way I am, and when I find something that interests me or an explanation that fits the things I'm interested in, I'm inclined to relate everything to those things. If she wasn't a sociopath, then she was something. She was not neurotypical. And I think that's why we functioned, because she had bullshit, she had woman bullshit, but her woman bullshit wasn't like a lot of these dumb bitches woman bullshit. I think she was trying to prey on me, and then fucked up and fell in love, and we had a great connection, true love, for a good while there. And I don't know why women do this, but I guess I can't cast stones. I notice women, when they are really into a dude, they will freak out and pull away from him. And I don't know why they or why you do that. One explanation I've heard from women is it's a fear of losing control of oneself, coming to reflect the man, as Manson would say. But why is that something you run from, or why is that something that scares you when it's something you want badly? You seek it out, and then finally you start to find it, and then you run away from it. Toward the end, that happened, and I was not advanced enough as a man to handle that the way I think it could be handled, or could have been handled. I'm still not there. Give me 5 more years or so. But this seems like something that happens often enough. My parents, this is after they were engaged, and they had a weird courtship. My mother tried to tell my father that she absolutely didn't want kids, and I remember the story, she slid her engagement ring across the table to him. They were at a restaurant, and he said, I want kids, and I want you in my life, and I'm going to give you this ring back, but if you give me my ring back one more time, that's it. you just used up your one retry. And then she kept the ring and had like fucking 50 miscarriages and then cranked out one retarded son. The way it played out with this woman and me, and I know I've told this story before, this does feel like the O&A show sometimes, how many videos we crank out. I don't care if I've told a story before. We're going to keep telling them. Because maybe like Anthony's stories, you get more details or different angles each time. She took a month, I think a month and a half, to think about whether or not she was going to have kids, and then she was going to give me her final answer. Then she gave me her final answer, and it was no. And she tried to give me the ultimatum, and if you don't like that, then you can just leave. And I left, which is something I will always give younger me credit for. That's the funniest shit. I deeply enjoy when someone's plan does not go the way they thought it was going to, even if it costs everything. And then that wasn't what she wanted, that wasn't what I was supposed to do, it wasn't what she was expecting me to do. And we stayed together a little while after that, and it was not good. It was rough. It was it was so bad. But when I look back on it, I look back at that badness, that ugliness. And this was threatening ugliness. She threatened me. And I always try to give her credit here. I did something I probably shouldn't have. I wasn't thinking about it. We had been separated for a while, and her birthday was coming up, and she had aspirations of trying to be a writer, so I sent her a book on writing. And then she took that as a stalking thing, which it wasn't. I loved her. I wish things didn't go this way. And I knew she was alone, mostly in her life, alone, alone, alone. So I thought I was doing something nice, and it was taken the wrong way, and she threatened me, and that bothered me. But I don't hold that against her. I don't like it, but I don't hold that against her. And I don't want to meet her again. I don't want to have anything to do with her again, because it would hurt. It would hurt really bad, because I think she's basically outside having kids range now. Nothing would be rekindled. It would just hurt, and my imprint, which has been useful to me throughout the years, that would get all fucked up. Oh, and there were other reasons I brought her up aside from telling that story again. Even with all the power scales on her side, she was older than I was, she was more mature than I was, she was wealthier than I was. She had everything, and I had nothing. She was very attractive, and I think this was I think this was after I tore my pec. There was something. I hadn't been lifting. I did not look good. My haircut was not flattering. I looked like someone who should have been selling hot dogs on a boardwalk. But because she accidentally fell in love with me, I was the one with most of the spiritual control in that relationship. And even now, looking back, that is weird. Another Patrice example, or an example Patrice likes bringing up, the Stedman and Oprah thing. Oprah is one of the wealthiest women on the planet, but if you look at pictures with her and Stedman, Stedman looks like the one who's being, or who the picture is being taken of, and Oprah is just there. He is the guy. And it's crazy the way this works. One of the examples Patrice mentioned was Oprah was talking about, or trying to talk Stedman into letting her get a dog, and he said no. One of the interactions that's always stuck with me was when this woman and she was at a mall at a pet store, and she badly wanted to buy a dog, even though she had a dog, and she said that she felt like she didn't give him enough emotional connection. Like, her dog wanted to have a good owner, and she wasn't a bad owner. She took care of him, but she did not love him the way you're supposed to love dogs. And I remember her contacting me and saying, I need you to convince me not to buy this puppy. I need you to tell me no. And it was a weird moment because it was not give me reasons not to buy the puppy. It was tell me no. The animal part of me knows and appreciates what that was, but the conscious part of me will always have trouble putting into words and explaining why it was. And we got along most of the time. The only time I can recall that we had an ugly fight, it was, if I'm remembering, I don't think I'm remembering correctly. I feel like I'm bastardizing two stories, putting those two together, but we're telling it anyway. I think she wanted me to explain something to her, and I don't remember if it was multiple times in one day or multiple times over a few days, but she kept asking me to explain something to her that I had explained a bunch of times. And eventually, something happened and I snapped, and then it was into anger feeding anger. And I've never, I don't, I get really mad about things and I break shit and cause all kinds of problems. But there haven't been many times. I think I would equate that with murder rage, which hasn't happened more than 5 times in my life. That was one of them, in which you're so angry it's just, and that's Jimmy's description: rage feeding rage. I couldn't stop, and it was weird. And this is what I mean by woman bullshit. I think she did that intentionally, because once she got me to that level, she switched up and was super gentle, super kind and considerate and caring, and she didn't hold it against me. She told me she wanted to see what I was like when I was at my angriest. And I get it, but Jesus, is there not another way to do that? Or do you have to rely on deception? Or do you have to lie to get me into that state? Although, as annoying as it was, as frustrating as it was, it's kind of genius. Makes complete sense why someone would do that. It's like that. This woman I'm talking about was Vietnamese, and it seems like I don't know what sort of horror Vietnamese parents put their kids through. It seems like I don't think I've met a Vietnamese girl who wasn't sexually assaulted and abused and all sorts of horrible shit done to her. But that, despite that being a small selection of women in the world, or at least that an American white dude will have any exposure to, they're nuts in a way that I like a lot. There was that last, or most recent ENTJ woman, Vietnamese, fucking nuts. We had a great, we had a super spark that she poured water on to protect herself, and that annoys me, or that annoyed me, because, yeah, this is not going to end well, but it'll be a lot of fun while it lasts. But if we're being completely honest, and I'm not trying to be mean here, it would have hurt her worse, and she protected herself, and it made complete sense. It annoys me because I selfishly wanted something, and I was denied it. But, and I don't get into other people's shoes very often. Only people I really, really care about, I'll try to see things from their perspective. Because, one, I don't think anybody actually can see things from another person's point of view. Two, it's a pretty arrogant thing to think you can. To think you can. And three, I'm bad at it, so I'm better off sticking to what I normally do. When I really like somebody or really care about somebody, I'll try to do it. From her perspective, it's fine. I get it. Completely makes sense, and I even respect it. And that's how I felt about this wife woman and her pushing me to that level. I get it, and even though it annoys me and goes against a lot of what I am and what I believe in and how I do things, I almost like you more for doing it that way. Because if you have to do that to someone like me, she did it the way it should have been done. If I had to do it, that's the way I would do it. Not that I would be able to pull it off the way she did. And it was calm constantly, and it was conversation constantly. There was never a break. We could not get enough of each other the entire time we were together. She would, and there was always something to talk about because our routine was she would give me sit reps on whatever she was doing or working on, whatever project she was investigating, and give me her or explain her thought process on why she's doing this or that, which was ideal because that's what I look for. I like someone who's interesting to investigate and to monitor long term because you learn a lot about a person by the way they deal with situations. And I know that to be true. I don't use it as much as I should. But the fun, especially when you love someone, is watching them evolve as a person based on what they do and why they do it, why they think they're doing it. And then on top of that, with her, there was a degree of uncertainty with her, but it wasn't painful uncertainty. It was exciting uncertainty. You're excited for tomorrow because you never know what this bitch is going to do next in a fun way. Pretty regularly. And I put this in my notes, daily notes, a while ago about how to write a good character. You can apply that to humans, how to find a good human. Some people become predictable, and that's annoying. With her, she would always do something unexpected. It would come out of nowhere. It would surprise her too. Both uncharacteristic, but also totally characteristic. And then the fun would be thinking about it. Why did she do that? Where did that come from? Like the dog thing. That, up to that point, that had never happened. And after that point, it never happened again. What you're seeing is a small part of something greater. This is constant iceberg theories. But what made it exciting was we both didn't know what it was, which is the joy of ENTJs and inferior FI. They don't know themselves. There is absolutely a self to know in them, but they don't know it, and you don't know it, and getting to know them is a group activity that includes them, and it's a lot of fun. And there's no artificial difficulty or bullshit. There's no hiding There's no obfuscation going on. It's constant action, and it feels like meaningful action. Constant activity. Only two women in my entire life I could see myself having married. The other was, it would have been a passionate ish marriage, but it would have been a very secure, this is a good thing and we can keep it up, and we'll probably wonder what else could have been, but what we have is really good. I would have, I could see, that's not the marriage you want, but if you end up in that situation, you are so fortunate. But this woman was the wife. And all I can do is hope when I run into or get another swing at a woman like her, I'm ready this time. And maybe things will be lined up better on the woman's side this go round too. Because it's not like it was perfect over there. But the reason we've talked about all this here, when I was in my little crisis yesterday, I did not go to the imaginary bar, to the cheap high, to the Paradise Matrix. I went to an imprint that was real. And that surprised me, and I was very happy about it. The sort of love that can survive the crucible exists. And in a moment of crisis, when lots of things are burning away, that sort of love will be one of the things that remains. And it felt good to realize that. Once again, the truth triumphs above all else. Not in any practical terms, unfortunately. The truth is dog shit, people hate it, and the truth isn't even true a lot of the time. But in the way you understand it, in the way you need it, in the way you deify it, it's there. True love is platinum. When everything else burns away, true love will be there. You just need to figure out how to work it again. But I think we will cut it here. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.